If feminism and egalitarianism are both for equal rights, then why does one start with a gendered prefix while the other one is entirely gender neutral?
Because of the historical origin, as well as the current context of the word, the fact that women were the ones to start the movement for equal rights, and they still are the ones who suffer most from the status quo. Very simple, really. There have been suggestions to change it, but at the current, that is not a popular notion, and thus it remains the same. Maybe one day a new name will be adopted, or maybe the need for such a movement will fade before then. I hope that answers your question.
What do you hope to gain by bringing back racial segregation?
I've always wondered, Undoomed, is that character you utilise just a fancy scarecrow, padded out with straw? Because frankly, that's all I ever get from you. We do not support segregation, but what we do support are spaces where people, typically not allowed to speak, are given power over a platform. The fact that you can't deal with these allotted places where you couldn't be the centre of attention, which you don't have to go to, by the way, and yet they piss you off, is really sad. But not as sad as the lie that this is segregation.
When my granduncle was dropping bombs on London, did your grandparents get out of their bunkers in the morning to protest with signs that read, "Not all Nazis"?
How did a Not All Men critique make it into a status quo video? Now, I realise what the actual intention of the post was, but I just couldn't resist. Fact is, most Muslims are cultural Muslims in the same way that most Christians are cultural Christians, and yes, the less religious the better they are as a person, but the fact is that Not All Muslims does not give Islam a free pass. It's simply there to defend ethnic minorities because, yes, racist bigots equate Islam with brown people, which is why Sikhs and Hindus are often assaulted post-incursion. On top of this, it acts to protect apostates who are afraid to come out for another reason, such as the punishment for apostasy. If they find themselves being assaulted by Christians or even atheists, we could chase them right back to the faith in something we know as cultural defense. This is something that I, as a critic of Islam, see and can understand. So why can't you?
Why do you think every cis white male is born racist? Racism is a learned behavior.
We know. We literally wrote the books on this one, Mr. Epsion. So why the hell do you think lying about what we think is a good idea is beyond me? Ask any number of activists centered around ethnic rights why they believe a white person can be racist in the US and the UK, but not ethnic minorities, and the most common response will not be genetics, but structural reasons, i.e. the previously discussed nuance between racial prejudice and cultural racism. This response is everywhere, and you could not have missed it if you had spent 2 minutes doing the most basic of searches. So how you think that you could get away with such a blatant lie is astonishing. And I would like to finish with another point made by Martin Hughes in his response to the same question. We don't think anyone is born racist, and yes, racism is a learned behavior. In America, we have a long and thriving and continuing history of teaching it particularly well. That's the entire point of fighting it. If it was an essential part of you, why bother? You'd be racist regardless of what we did. I hope that corrects your misunderstanding.
How can you possibly say that the phrase "all lives matter" is somehow racist? It sounds like something the Dalai Lama would say.
Context is key. If I said, "she's a bitch," and it turned out I was talking about my dog, not a problem. If I said, "she's a bitch," and it turned out I was talking about a woman I hated, major issue. The phrase "all lives matter" is utilized in most circles in attempts to instill apathy towards the police brutality as well as general societal violence targeted at ethnic minorities. I do not know of a single Black Lives Matter protester who objects to the objective statement that all lives matter, but rather the way in which it is applied by racists to attempt to dodge criticism and further turn a blind eye to death after death is a problem. Imagine we are in a hospital and someone started bleeding out and they needed all available hands on deck. Imagine, however, if the doctors just continued doing what they were initially doing, whether it be looking at a kid's runny nose, because, as you put it, all lives matter. Some situations should breed urgency of action. That is the point of the whole Black Lives Matter movement and the hashtag.
Would you rather be right or popular? It seems like your primary objective is to score social points and get public validation. You speak publicly in the same way that people write their dating profiles. Stop trying to demonstrate how awesome you are and get real.
From the facts that I decided to create this video, we can confirm that I'd rather stand with that which stands up to scrutiny over that which is popular. Being an SJW, at least online, is not the most popular position, and it certainly is not the most lucrative. Let's play Spot the Video in Defense of Feminism with my subscriber count, shall we? At first, feminist videos would lose me several subscribers before settling back rather quickly. But as time dragged on, I lost more and more until February, where I've been crippled since I last took on TJ. I went from a healthy 400 subscriber average down to minus subscribers a month over the past 5 to 6 months. So the only reason you would be asking this question are for the same reasons a theist would ask this question. You like to view yourselves as the victims of the LGBT+, women's and ethnic equality movements, and it's absolute rubbish. Your question is about as valid as the assertion that the reason secularism is doing so well currently is because it's popular among the young people for challenging their parents. It's simply an act of defiance to gain popularity. That's why I really had to consider doing this video. I even asked my subscribers whether I keep quiet and let you continue to tarnish everything we've worked for in the secular community, or do I speak out and put a target on my back? I know this video will receive a major flood of biblical proportions, not because of the weight of any of the points I make, but because you've managed to sell people the next great lie, and they do not like it to be questioned. Once the great lie was, there is life after death. Now it has become, do not question your actions. You are right. Continue in total self-interest. You don't simply want to explain why Atlas shrugged, but tell people why they should follow. I see this conflict as less about feminism and anti-feminism and more about humanism and this Randian shard of infection spreading in the secular community. You have effectively bred a cult of apathy, and the best I can do is get my channel crushed talking out against it. Because maybe, just maybe, some people on the sidelines can actually learn.
So if a drunk man sleeps with a drunk woman, the woman is incapable of giving consent, but the man is?
If both were equally intoxicated, no. If, however, the courts were to find that the man or woman was less intoxicated and they sexually touched someone who was less coherent, e.g. unconscious, then yes, that is sexual assault. You are asking a very black and white question for a situation that does not have said clarity. Your binary is bad, and you should feel bad for attempting to pass it off for an actual point.
Is it really easier to spend your life attempting to pacify the world and subdue all around you, instead of accepting that you are the person who has to change.
We are on about rape, police brutality, child conversion therapy, and you think it's cool to make such an asinine quip. Tell me, why do you feel so triggered by our desire to make the world a better place? Why do you kick and scream the moment we question your actions? Isn't the adult response to criticism to actually listen, not continue to spew such drivel? You are by far one of the most juvenile individuals I have ever encountered, and all you have to do to verify this is look at any number of pieces from your channel.
When I'm singing along with rap music, is it okay if I say the word nigga?
As Martin Hughes mentions again, context. Most people don't mind. If, however, you decided to change the word in some smart way to avoid it, then you may be viewed as having gone the extra mile, but it's not something that is really demanded. Just know the context and you'll be fine. Glad to be able to pass that on.
How do you reconcile your opinion that gender doesn't matter or even exist with your need to invent new genders each day?
Again, what is with these straw men? Gender is a social construct, agreed, but it has symbolic potency. It matters to us, and that is perfectly okay. It's the same for love, honor, pride, betrayal. These are all feelings, yes, but the actual understanding of these things are social constructs just like gender. The only harm comes when you step over the line to try and force someone to conform to your norms, i.e. you invade their rights to identity. Why does who they are affect you in any way?
In your version of equality, will white men ever have a voice in society, or will white men always be too privileged to participate in discussion?
Except that is not what is said. You are complaining about the few instances where people of colour are given control over a platform to make up for the whitewashing of discourse. You may as well be the guy asking, will there ever be a time when a white actor will be allowed on television? Most of the time, they are the ones on television, just like most of the time, they are the ones who speak. Giving others the opportunity they should have to speak only removes the overly disproportionate opportunities you have had to speak. It does not remove your ability to speak, it simply makes things more equal. If that is a threat to you, then you're not afraid of losing your rights, you're afraid of losing your privilege.
What makes you think that the power of censorship that you are so desperately trying to establish now will at no point be used against you?
Because we're not using censorship. We may be denying people access to the platforms we control, but that is the right of the platform owner and has always been. Otherwise, the BBC would be showing non-stop UKIP videos, or scientific journals would be forced to publish Ken Ham's opinion pieces under threat of lawsuit for violating their free speech. Your free speech gives you the right to talk. It does not give you the right to an audience, and certainly does not give you the right to make the audience pay for your talk. That's why we can boycott. Glad to see we could clear that one up.